BLUF Gaming here with an Atlas tutorial showing how to build a galleon. First, you want to dive underwater to make sure there's enough room both for the large shipyard and the galleon that you'll eventually launch out of it. Once you have your large shipyard in place, you can interact with it to see that you need to spend 2,560 fiber, 680 metal, 5,600 thatch, and 4,200 wood in order to build the ribbing for the galleon. Most of the resources that you spend will be spent at the smithy. I'm going to assume that you're going to build all the decks and a maximum number of gun ports possible. The galleon can support 6 large decks, costing 400 fiber, 650 thatch, and 860 wood each. If you're building a maximum number of gun ports, which is 52, you'll only need 22 large planks, costing 1,540 fiber, 24 metal, 1,320 thatch, 1,540 wood. The large gun ports cost exactly the same as the large planks, except that instead of 24 metal, they require 256 metal. And in case you're curious, what I forgot to mention earlier is that the large shipyard itself costs 1,000 fiber, 500 stone, 2,000 thatch, and 4,000 wood. Other items that you'll eventually have to build at the smithy include an ammunition box or two, costing 40 fiber, 8 metal, 60 thatch, and 120 wood each. Of course, you'll need a steering wheel for 14 fiber, 18 thatch, and 40 wood each. If you plan to use large cannons, they'll cost you 48 alloy, 24 fiber, 35 hide, and 78 wood. However, despite the gun ports being called large gun ports, they do not support a large cannon. Those will have to go on the upper deck. Ammunition for the large cannon costs 1 flint, 14 gunpowder, and 14 metal. And the weapon that I suspect will be your most numerous is the regular cannon, costing 28 alloy, 14 fiber, 20 hide, and 42 wood each. Their ammunition is slightly cheaper than the large cannon at 1 flint, 12 gunpowder, and 10 metal each. Once you have all the materials that you need, I recommend you place the gun ports first. That way you don't accidentally place a plank where it doesn't belong. Once you've finished with those, place all the planks to finish at the bottom. And at this point, you should be ready to place your 6 large decks. Just be sure to bring along some ladders or stairs, that way you don't get trapped below deck. Just like with every other ship deck in the game, you'll then want to place wooden ceiling tiles to fill in the holes in the decks. This allows for highly customizable rooms and the placing of large workbenches, but I will leave all the customization up to you. Once your decks are complete, you'll be able to start positioning your cannons behind gun ports. Of course, you can place other weapons on the upper deck, but you may have crew issues at low levels. I recommend using 6 large sails. However, with 16 sail units on the galleon, there are many configurations possible. I'll be using 4 large speed sails and 2 large handling sails, which have the same price at 1,080 fibers, 200 hide, 80 metal, and 512 wood each. For those of you who just pulled out your calculators, you're probably thinking that 2.7 for each large sail times 6 equals 16.2 sail units, and the galleon only has 16. The good news is that each large sail actually uses 2.666 or 2 2/3 units, and the game just rounds it up to 2.7. Once you actually place them, you'll see that you can indeed get 3 large sails for 8 points or 6 large sails for 16. The reason I recommend 6 large sails is because if you max out your gun ports and have 52 cannons, and you have 6 sails, that's a total of 58 crew or friends that you'll need to manage of these. And the galleon only starts with 59 potential crew members, leaving you with only 1 extra slot for someone to steer the thing. While a galleon is not invincible, ships of the damned will no longer be your greatest threat. A single volley from a fully loaded galleon is sufficient to take out a very low-level ship of the damned. Higher level ships may take 2 or 3 volleys. However, a galleon can easily take out 10 or more ships of the damned without stopping for repairs. All told, a galleon will cost you more than 100,000 fiber, thatch, and wood, more than 15,000 metal, and 1,200 hide before you even arm the thing. That's your bottom line up front. If you'd like to see a lot more detail of the building of this galleon, and a lot of me sucking at combat against the army of the dead, just stick around after the intro. Thanks for sticking around. The Galleon is a monstrous endeavor and will take a lot of people and resources in order to get one afloat. If you interact with your large shipyard, you'll see that just the ribbing for the Galleon costs 2,560 fiber, 680 metal, 5,600 thatch, and 4,200 wood. If for some reason you don't see the Galleon listed in your large shipyard, make sure you have the appropriate skills. In order to get access to building the large shipyard itself, you need to have advanced shipwright. The Galleon itself is unlocked one step down under expert shipwright. Both of these, of course, are in the seamanship tree. As I've mentioned before, just because you can place a large shipyard doesn't mean it's necessarily safe for you to build ships in it. You need to dive down and make sure there aren't any rocks jutting up that could hit the hull as you first launch your ship. Now that we know our shipyard is safe, let's go ahead and build the ribbing. Then we can take a look around at what we'll be working with. The Galleon ribbing has extensive scaffolding that extends 3 stories up and the normal 1 story down to sea level, just like with the other ships. This allows you to easily reach all areas of the exterior of the hull. And the only time you're truly in danger of possibly getting stuck inside is whenever you have to first go inside and place the decks. Several levels of the scaffolding wrap around the front or back, that way you don't have to worry about jumping back and forth from the actual large shipyard, or worry about having to get in the water and deal with all the negative consequences of doing that. As I mentioned earlier, the vast majority of your resources are going to be spent at the smithy. To make this more convenient for my tutorial, I put a smithy out here on the large shipyard. However, if you're going to do the same, make sure you find a way to protect it. You can install up to 6 large decks in the Galleon, however it can sail with fewer if you have a design in mind that doesn't require all 6. The configuration that I'm demoing today uses 22 planks and 52 large gun ports. However, if you don't want that many gun ports, you can replace any gun port with a plank. This will significantly lower the amount of metal you have to spend, but all your other resource requirements will remain the same. Because you can always use a plank in place of a gun port, it's good to bring some extras with you when you're out to sea in case you have to make any emergency repairs. Other items that you'll need to build at the smithy are your ammunition boxes and your steering wheel. However, the costs of these two are negligible compared to the rest of the Galleon. Not negligible are the costs for building any cannons that you're going to have on the ship. Both regular and large cannons require alloy bars in their construction. I've had a lot of questions on my other videos about where to find a particular metal for an alloy. However, cannons don't seem to mind what bar you're giving them, just whatever bar you're making in the forge should work fine. Another very large consideration for the Galleon is the ammunition. With this configuration having 26 cannons per side, the number of cannonballs used in combat quickly adds up. A couple of items that can be constructed anywhere that you'll be using are going to be wooden ceiling tiles and either ladders or stairs so that you can travel from one deck to another. You'll also likely want to have large storage containers that you can keep all your booty in, as well as any repair materials in case you get damaged at sea. A smithy, loom, or mortar and pestle are also options you could have aboard, as you can use those to build more components for repairs, ammunition for fights, or potentially sails in case you aren't liking the configuration you brought with you. As I mentioned earlier, I like to place the gun ports first, as they will only snap to areas where it's okay to place them. Planks, on the other hand, can place in the plank-only spots or the optional slots for gun ports, and you don't want to accidentally place a plank and have to waste it in case you don't pick it back up in time. If you're short on metal or just aren't planning on putting all 52 gun ports on your Galleon, you'll have to take extra care when you're placing the planks and gun ports to make sure you have them where you want them. Once the hull is complete, you can begin placing up to 6 large decks. The Galleon has slots for 3 main decks that span the entire length of the ship. 2 upper decks in the rear and 1 upper deck in the front. Similarly to the sloop, you can go below deck on the bottom deck and find yourself walking directly on the ribbing. This is a place where people can sleep, but there doesn't seem to be a way to place anything useful down there. If you're planning on installing dinghy docks in your Galleon, don't put the ladders all the way on the edge, as the dinghy dock can block your path up. Once all of your decks are in place, it's time to fill in the holes with ceiling tiles. However, keep in mind you want to leave open holes for any staircases or ladders you'll have coming through, as well as for any large rooms that you want to span higher than one level. Keep in mind that some benches, like the loom, can't fit in a single high area. So if you plan on having extra tall workbenches on your Galleon, but you don't want them on the upper deck, be sure to leave some open tiles so that they can jut through from one level to the next. Once our decks are complete, we can begin placing down all of the cannons. While you're placing cannons, they will snap into place behind the nearest gun port. And once they're crewed, they'll draw ammo from an ammunition box on board. If you intend to use large cannons or other weapons, keep in mind that they may require you to place them on the upper decks. And if you've maxed out the number of gun ports that you have, you may have to decide which weapons to crew and which to leave empty. The only essentials that we're missing now are sails and a steering wheel, so let's head to the loom. As I mentioned earlier, the Galleon can support 6 large sails, despite what the numbers may suggest. Since the different types of large sails all cost the same amount to build, the only deciding factor is performance or possibly aesthetic. I'm choosing to go with 4 large speed sails so I can get where I'm going quickly, and 2 handling sails so I don't become completely immobilized whenever I'm turning at extreme angles. While we're at the loom, we'll also want to make some rope ladders, as those are the way that we'll be getting in and out of this ship from the water. And on the more fun side, we can also use these rope ladders to climb the sails and stand atop the mast. If you aren't expecting to use a large number of crew and weapons and you think you'll have some extra demand sails, you could experiment with other sail configurations. Other configurations you could try would be 9 medium sails, or one that I've personally tried is 4 large sails and 3 medium sails. Keeping in mind what I said earlier about a large sail only taking 2 2/3 sail units, you might be wondering if medium sails actually cost 1.7. Well, they do. This means that if for some reason you're looking at the configuration of 5 larges, 1 medium, and 1 small, and you're noticing it's only about 3/100ths of a sail unit off, I have bad news for you, it's not going to fit. I mentioned earlier about some other things you might want to bring along, such as containers and a smithy. A smithy is one I always take with me on larger ships because they're the bench that constructs most of the things that keep you afloat. I also go ahead and pre-construct some extra planks and gun ports for my large ships. That way, if I do lose a panel, I can go ahead and place them right now as soon as we're clear of any debris. In case you weren't aware, you can climb to the top of the masts, you just have to bring the rope ladders to do so. If you haven't done so already, you can go ahead and stop the tutorial here and come back later. I know you want to go try it out, it's worth it. Let's go ahead and place our steering wheel, then a few more rope ladders on the side, and we'll be ready to go find some crew. Wow, isn't she a beaut? I've mustered up a few scallywags from a nearby brigantine. I'm going to set them on the sails so we can release and go to the nearest free port to really crew up this ship. NPC crew can be a bit buggy, and there's not much I can do to help you with that. Just keep an eye on them to make sure they're still following you, and whenever you find the place that you want them to be it a sail or a cannon, just make sure it's highlighted and then press your comma button to assign the nearest unemployed crew member. Well, now it's time to release. Pop open a bottle of rum and give this thing a name. I'm thinking it looks a bit like a gem, so I'm going to name it Gem Galleon. With only 2 sails manned right now, we aren't going to go very fast, but I don't live far from a free port, and I'm going to go crew up the other 56 stations on this ship and be right back with you. You do not want to know what the unemployment level in this little tiny port was like. Somehow they had 56 level 1 sailors ready to go. And so far as I could tell, they didn't even have 56 places for them to sleep. I'm not complaining though, because I needed their help, and they're not complaining because I had plenty of gold. As you can see though, several of them are sitting on the rails ready to work, and 52 of them appear to be doing unspeakable things to my cannons. I'm not a man to complain though, so long as they're loyal to my gold and their aim is true. Say goodbye to the port all, it may be the last time we ever see it. We're not long out to sea and the ship has just gained its first level. As you can see, every point you put into additional crew or accommodation increases those stats by 1 each. Sturdiness is increased by 2.5%, and every point we put into weight gains us an additional 300 allowance. However, as we're only using about 12,000 of our 21,000 total weight allowance, we're not going to be leveling that one up for some time. You may notice during combat that the front section of my galleon has red icons. That's letting us know that those cannons don't have access to any ammunition. I didn't install any ammo boxes in the rear of the galleon, so the front ones don't have any way to fire. Be sure to install multiple ammo boxes throughout the galleon so that all cannons can have access to ammunition. All told, in my first trip out in this Galleon, I killed more than a dozen ships of the damned, ranging from levels 2 to 24, never stopping for repairs. Although, damage is starting to show a bit, so I'm going to bring it home and make some repairs and improvements for future videos. As I said in the beginning of the video, once you're in a Galleon, ships of the damned are no longer your biggest threat. The threat at that point primarily is going to be other players, either also in their own Galleons or perhaps a team of brigantines. Since I don't have a banana end game to show for scale, I'm going to sail next to some other ships, brigantines, schooners, and even one sloop off on the left so that you can see a size comparison from above. And finally, here I am next to another Galleon, this one using a different sail configuration, with 4 large sails in the rear and 3 medium sails in the front. One interesting thing about the Galleon is that there's a ledge on the hull that you can run along if you're afoot. Galleons can also support up to 6 dinghy docks. However, they can block some common areas that you might want to put ladders, so be careful in that regard. If you're not going to be piloting it alone, you may also want to consider adding a lieutenant's podium, which makes it easier for one player to sail while the other one controls the cannons. The lieutenant's podium is made available in one of the very first skills in the captaining tree. Thanks for watching Bottom Line Up Front. If this was useful for you, please like or comment and let me know. And, of course, you can subscribe if you want to see my future videos as soon as they come out. Of course, you can dislike my videos as well, but if you do that, I'm going to sneak onto your ship, climb to the top of the mast, and then roll up all your ladders. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you on the high seas.